Welcome to Starbound. My name's Aram, and I'll be your narrator today. Nearly 500 supporters get early access to our stories, including brand new episodes of Sunspire Academy and Freyrin and Remike. If you'd like to unlock early access and support new episodes and future series, tap Join below to become a Starbound member. Now, let's get into today's story. The wrench wasn't going to fit. Will Cutter knew this, just as he knew the coolant valve would rupture in the next 30 seconds if he didn't make the damn thing work anyway. "Come on, you son of a bitch," he growled, forcing the wrench onto the valve cap. The metal groaned in protest. Sweat dripped from Will's forehead onto the hot engine housing, sizzling on contact. The ship's coolant system whined at a pitch that made his back teeth ache. Footsteps approached behind him. Captain wants an update on— "Tell Evans if he doesn't stop riding my ass, I'll personally ensure this bucket never leaves port again." Will didn't look up from his work. The irregular shape of the valve cap, designed by aliens who had apparently never heard of standardized parts, finally caught in the wrench's grip. He grunted with satisfaction. The crewman hesitated, then retreated. Smart move. Everyone aboard the mining freighter Old Thunder knew to steer clear when Will Cutter was wrestling with the engines. Will gave the wrench a sharp quarter turn. The valve hissed, then complied. Coolant pressure readings dropped from critical to merely concerning. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Engine room," came the ship AI's flat monotone. "Coolant system stabilizing. Estimated function restoration, 94.6%. "Close enough," Will muttered, wiping his hands on a rag that had once been white. "That'll hold until we reach the outpost." He stood, stretching his back until it cracked. At 39, Will felt every one of his years, plus a few bonus decades courtesy of multiple combat deployments in Earth's colony wars. His weathered face and calloused hands told the story of a man who'd spent his life fighting either human enemies or mechanical failures. Sometimes it was hard to remember which were worse. "AI, how long until we reach the outpost?" "Current trajectory places arrival at Outpost 36 in approximately 18 standard hours, assuming no further mechanical failures." The AI's subtle dig wasn't lost on Will. "Nobody likes a smart-ass computer," he said, reaching for the half-empty coffee mug he'd left on the workbench. The coffee had gone cold, but he drank it anyway. Caffeine was caffeine. The familiar sensation of the ship's gravity slightly fluctuating told him they were adjusting course. Standard procedure when navigating this region of space. Humanity had only been part of the galactic community for 30 years, invited in after the coordinator AI detected their first tentative faster-than-light experiments. Being newcomers, humans got the worst routes, the dangerous mining operations, the grunt work no one else wanted. Will preferred it that way. Working the fringes meant minimal contact with alien bureaucrats and their endless regulations. Out here, what mattered was whether you could do the job, not which protocol subsection you had memorized. The ship's alarm blared suddenly, red emergency lights flooding the engine room. "What now?" Will growled, reaching for his tool belt. Probably another false alarm. Captain Evans was notoriously paranoid, constantly scanning for pirates despite being in a relatively secure sector. The engine room door slid open. Tanner, the junior engineer, burst in. His face was ghost white, eyes wide with terror. "Well, there, things on the bridge. They killed Evans. The comm system cut in, broadcasting ship-wide. Will heard screams, gunfire, and a high-pitched keening that made his skull throb. Then, silence. Will grabbed Tanner's shoulders. "What things? Pirates?" "Not pirates!" Tanner's voice shook. "They appeared out of nowhere, like ghosts, but solid. They tore Sullivan apart with their bare hands." Will released him, mind racing. "Secure the engine room. Lock the door behind me." He grabbed his wrench, a solid 3-pound chunk of steel that had gotten him out of tight spots before, and a portable welding torch. "You're going up there!" Tanner looked incredulous. "Someone has to figure out what the hell's happening." Will strapped the torch to his belt. "If I'm not back in 15 minutes, initiate the engine overload sequence and get to the escape pod." Before Tanner could protest, Will slipped through the door and into the corridor. Emergency lighting cast everything in a bloody glow. The ship felt wrong, the usual mechanical hums replaced by an eerie silence, punctuated by distant thumps and what sounded like whispers. Will moved quickly but cautiously toward the bridge, pausing at a viewport. Outside, a massive battle was unfolding. A Krell warship, distinctive with its bone-white hull and tusk-like weapon arrays, was being swarmed by bizarre craft that seemed to flicker in and out of existence. As he watched, one of the attacking vessels phased partially through the Krell ship's hull, leaving a gaping wound that vented atmosphere and bodies into space. "Holy shit," Will muttered. The mining ship had blundered right into the middle of a war zone. He reached the bridge access corridor to find the security door torn open, metal peeled back like paper. The stench hit him first. Copper and ozone mixed with something sickly sweet that made his stomach turn. Captain Evans lay just inside, or what remained of him. His chest cavity had been ripped open, organs removed with savage precision. Navigation Officer Sullivan was sprawled across her console, head twisted completely around, eyeless sockets frozen in terror. Movement caught Will's eye. A humanoid figure stood by the main viewport, its outline blurring and resharpening as if struggling to maintain corporeal form. It turned toward Will, revealing a face that seemed to be constantly shifting, features sliding and reforming in a nauseating display. The thing lunged with inhuman speed. Pure instinct saved Will's life. He swung the wrench in a wide arc, connecting solidly with what should have been the creature's skull. To his shock, the impact had effect. The entity shrieked, a sound that lanced directly into Will's brain like an ice pick. The creature staggered back, its form destabilizing further. Black ichor leaked from the impact point, evaporating into oily smoke before it hit the deck. Will pressed his advantage, swinging again, this time catching it in what approximated a shoulder. The blow sent it reeling into a console. Will spotted the captain's sidearm on the floor. He dove for it, rolled, and came up firing. The first shot missed as the creature's form briefly phased out of reality. The second caught its center mass, and the thing convulsed, its body corrupting into static-like patterns before it disappeared entirely into black smoke. "What the actual fuck?" Will panted, scanning for more threats. The bridge appeared to be clear for the moment. He approached the command console, careful to avoid Sullivan's body, and activated the emergency protocols. "This is Engineering Officer Will Cutter. Captain Evans and Navigation Officer Sullivan are dead. We have been boarded by unknown hostile entities. AI, identification." The ship's AI was slow to respond, its voice distorted.
"Entities match no known classification. Tentatively established as dimensional anomalies. Threat level maximum. Recommended action. Immediate evacuation."
Will looked down the viewport again. The Krell warship was clearly losing its battle, swarmed by the flickering entity's vessels. As he watched, more of the humanoid creatures phased through the hull, boarding the alien ship. Despite his general contempt for non-humans, especially the arrogant Krell with their warrior posturing, Will understood the threat transcended species divisions. If these dimensional anomalies could tear through a Krell battlecruiser like butter, no one was safe. "AI, plot an escape vector. Maximum burn once we're clear."
"Unable to comply. Navigational systems damaged. Propulsion limited to maneuvering thrusters only.
Will slammed his fist on the console. Of course! He studied the tactical display, noting the Krell ship's increasingly desperate maneuvers. An idea formed. Insane, likely suicidal, but better than waiting to be torn apart. AI, can we maneuver alongside the Krell warship, within docking range?
Affirmative. Maneuvering thrusters operational. Warning. Close approach to active combat zone. Not recommended.
Just do it, Will growled. He activated the ship-wide comm. Tanner, meet me in airlock 3. Bring the portable demo charges from Cargo Bay 6. Will had no illusions about his chances, but he'd be damned if he'd die cowering in an engine room. If these things wanted a fight, he'd give them one they wouldn't forget. The mining ship wasn't designed for combat maneuvers. Its hull groaned under the stress as Will piloted it alongside the massive Krell warship. Through the viewport, he could see the battle raging. Krell warriors in-armored, fighting desperately against the shifting enemies, losing ground deck by deck. "Well, this is insane," Tanner said, clutching the duffel bag full of mining explosives. "The Krell won't even let us dock. They'll shoot us on approach." "Oh, they're a bit busy at the moment," Will replied, eyeing the tactical display. "Besides, our docking clamps aren't compatible with their airlocks. We're going to have to improvise." The old Thunder shuddered as debris from the battle struck its hull. Will guided the ship toward a section of the Krell vessel that appeared relatively intact, bringing them within 20 meters of the alien airlock. "Perfect," he muttered. "Tanner, secure yourself. This is going to get rough." Will activated the mining ship's exterior maintenance arms, heavy-duty mechanical limbs designed for moving ore containers. He carefully manipulated the arms to grasp the edges of the Krell airlock. "What are you doing?" Tanner asked, eyes wide. "Making a door." Will increased the power to the arms, metal screaming as the incompatible systems were forced together. The ship's AI blared warnings about structural integrity, which Will ignored. With a final groan of protest, the mining ship's airlock sealed against the Krell vessel. The connection was ugly, imperfect, but it would hold atmosphere. Barely. Will grabbed the duffel bag from Tanner. "Stay here. Keep the ship ready for immediate detachment. If things go sideways, don't wait for me." "You're actually going over there? Alone?" Tanner's voice cracked. "That's suicide!" Will checked the captain's pistol, ensuring a full magazine. "Probably," he agreed. "But sitting here waiting to die isn't my style." He hefted his wrench in his other hand and headed for the airlock. The makeshift connection held as Will cycled through. He emerged into the Krell ship's corridor, immediately assaulted by the sounds of battle, energy weapons discharging, metal tearing, and the psychic shriek of the entities. The Krell ship's interior was chaos. Bodies of reptilian warriors lay everywhere, their scaled forms torn open or twisted into impossible shapes. The survivors fought in disciplined formations, but were clearly overwhelmed by enemies that could phase through solid matter. Will moved quickly, keeping to cover. He set small explosive charges at key junctions, creating traps that would funnel the entities into kill zones. The mining explosives weren't military grade, but they'd disrupt anything that got caught in the blast. The first entity he encountered was feeding on a fallen Krell, absorbing something luminous from the alien's chest cavity. Will didn't hesitate. He fired 3 rounds into its back, watching with grim satisfaction as it convulsed and dissolved. "They can die," he muttered. "That's something." He continued deeper into the ship, dispatching entities when necessary, setting traps where possible. His approach was crude but effective compared to the Krell's formal combat doctrine. Where they fought in rigid formations with standardized tactics, Will improvised, using the environment to his advantage. As he neared what his instincts told him was the bridge, the resistance increased. Entities phased through walls, lunging at him from all angles. Will kept moving, firing, swinging his wrench when they got too close. The pistol ran dry eventually, but the wrench never needed reloading. The bridge entrance was barricaded, heavy metal barriers deployed across the doorway. Will approached cautiously, identifying himself. "Human Engineering Officer Will Cutter, from the mining vessel Old Thunder," he shouted. "I'm here to help!" There was a pause. Then a section of the barrier retracted just enough to admit one person. Will slipped through, immediately finding himself surrounded by Krell warriors, their weapon arrays targeted on his chest. In the center of the bridge stood the tallest Krell Will had ever seen. Nearly 8 feet of armored reptilian warrior, his scales were dark green, interrupted by pale scars that told the story of countless battles. One tusk was broken short, giving his already fearsome visage an asymmetrical, more savage appearance.
"A human."
The Krell commander's voice was deep, resonating in Will's chest.
"You dare board a Krell warship? Are you a scavenger, hoping to claim prizes amid our battle?"
Will lowered his wrench, but didn't relinquish it. "If I wanted salvage, I'd have waited until you were all dead. I came because we're facing the same enemy." The commander narrowed his vertical slit pupils.
"I am War Commander Dorn. Identify yourself properly, human."
"Will Cutter, Engineering Officer. And if you want to live long enough for formal introductions, you might want to hear what I have to say about those things out there." A ripple of outrage passed through the Krell officers at his insolence, but Dorn raised a clawed hand for silence.
"Speak, then."
Will quickly assessed the tactical situation displayed on the bridge consoles. "Your ship is being systematically overrun. These entities can phase through solid matter, but become temporarily solid when attacking. I've killed several. They don't leave bodies. They dissolve into black smoke when fatally damaged."
"We are aware of their corporeal limitations,"
Dorn said stiffly.
"We are attempting to capture specimens for analysis."
Will barked a laugh. "Capture? They're tearing your warriors apart, and you're trying to take prisoners. No wonder you're losing." A young Krell officer stepped forward aggressively.
"How dare a maintenance ape speak to—"
"Silence, Graf,"
Dorn commanded. He studied Will with newfound interest.
"You have a strategic assessment, human."
Will pointed to the ship's schematic. "They're concentrating around your engine core and life support systems. Classic strategy. Control the critical systems, the rest of the ship falls. You need to change the battlefield, vent specific decks to space, force them into corridors where they can't phase through walls without exposing themselves to vacuum."
"Our warriors still occupy those sections,"
objected another officer. "Sacrifice them," Will said bluntly. "They're already dead. Once you've corralled these things, hit them with concentrated fire. I've brought mining explosives that can be detonated remotely in the choke points." The bridge fell silent. The Krell stared at him, their reptilian features unreadable to human eyes. Finally, Dorn spoke.
"You propose we abandon our brothers to strengthen our strategic position."
"I propose you stop dying by the rulebook," Will countered. "These things don't care about your warrior traditions or battle protocols. They're winning because they don't fight fair." Before Dorn could respond, alarms blared. A section of the bridge wall rippled, and 3 entities phased through, their forms solidifying as they attacked the nearest Krell officers. Will moved without hesitation. He hurled himself at the nearest entity, wrench swinging in a lethal arc. The impact sent it reeling back, its form destabilizing. The Krell were momentarily frozen in shock at his reckless charge. "Shoot them while they're solid!" Will roared, ducking under a swipe from elongated claws that left deep gouges in the metal wall behind him. Dorn was the first to react, firing his energy weapon into the second entity. The blast caught it mid-phase, causing it to erupt in a shower of black particles. The Krell warriors followed their commander's lead, concentrating fire on the third. Will finished his opponent with a brutal overhead swing that shattered whatever passed for its skull. As it dissolved, he turned to find Dorn watching him with an unreadable expression.
Your strategy,
Dorn said.
implement it.
They fought their way through the ship's corridors, a bizarre alliance of Krell warriors and one human engineer. Will's plan worked. Specific decks were vented to space, forcing the entities into predictable paths where they were met with concentrated fire and explosive traps. The Krell warriors observed Will's unorthodox fighting style with a mixture of disgust and reluctant admiration. He used environmental features they considered beneath notice: maintenance ducts, exposed wiring, pressure points, and wall panels. The entities seemed confused by his unpredictable movements, while they easily anticipated the Krell's textbook maneuvers. During one particularly brutal engagement, Will and Dorn became separated from the other warriors. Cornered by a swarm of entities, they fought back to back. Dorn wielded his ceremonial energy blade with discipline, each movement the product of millennia of Krell martial tradition. Will fought with brutal pragmatism. He'd fashioned a makeshift flamethrower from hydraulic fluid and his welding torch, engulfing entities in blue-white fire that seemed to disrupt their ability to phase. Those that survived the flames met his wrench or boot hill.
You fight without honor,
Dorn observed during a momentary lull.
yet effectively.
Will snorted, reloading his salvaged Krell weapon. Honor is a luxury for those who expect to live through the battle. They reached the engine core to find the entities attempting to transform it into some kind of dimensional gateway. Pulsing otherworldly energy swirled around the faster-than-light drive, warping reality itself.
Coordinator, preserve us,
Whispered Dorn.
They're creating a permanent breach.
Will assessed the situation quickly, recalibrating his original plan. We need to disrupt that pattern. Not just kill the entities, but break whatever they're building. He repositioned his remaining explosives, setting them to detonate in a specific sequence that would interrupt the energy flow without destroying the core entirely. This will damage your FTL drive, he warned Dorn.
If the alternative is becoming a gateway for these abominations, I accept the cost.
The detonation was successful. The entities were destroyed, the gateway pattern disrupted. But as Dorn had acknowledged, the cost was high. The Krell ship's faster-than-light drive was critically damaged, leaving them stranded in hostile space with only conventional engines. As emergency systems engaged, Dorn received a galaxy-wide transmission from the Coordinator AI. These slip demons were attacking throughout the galaxy. All warriors were being called to defend civilization. With the FTL drive damaged, the Krell ship limped toward the nearest hub station. During the journey, Dorn sought out Will, finding him helping repair critical systems alongside Krell engineers.
Your assistance was unexpected,
Dorn said, watching Will recalibrate a power coupling.
Where did you learn to fight?
Will didn't look up from his work. Earth's colony wars. 15 years military service, before I got tired of taking orders from officers who'd never seen real combat. Dorn's expression registered surprise.
Your species still engages in warfare against itself.
Not all the time, just when resources get tight or someone's ego gets too big. Will tightened the coupling with his wrench. After the last big dust-up on Titan, I decided mining pay was better than military benefits. Dorn was silent for a long moment.
My people consider internal warfare a mark of primitive evolution. We abandoned it millennia ago.
And how's that working out for you against these demons? Will asked pointedly. The Krell commander had no answer. The hub station was chaos when they arrived. Ships from a dozen species docked haphazardly, emergency protocols overriding normal traffic control. The Coordinator AI had established an emergency war council, its holographic avatar floating above the central meeting chamber. The Krell were assigned leadership based on their warrior heritage, but reports indicated their initial deployments had been disastrous. The Slip Demon's ability to phase through solid matter rendered traditional Krell tactics ineffective. Dorn, breaking protocol, brought Will before the Council to demonstrate human combat tactics against the recorded demon encounters. The Council was dismissive until Will highlighted critical weaknesses in their approach. While the aliens focused on containing and studying the threat, Will advocated immediate, overwhelming violence. "These things feed on hesitation," he argued, manipulating the tactical displays. "Hit fast, hit hard, and burn the bodies." His demonstration showed the demon's difficulty predicting chaotic, aggressive movements, precisely how humans naturally fought. The High Command seemed unconvinced until Dorn spoke in support.
I have witnessed this human's methods firsthand,
the Krell commander stated.
They are unorthodox, but effective. The demons struggle to counter his unpredictability.
Against traditional protocol, the Coordinator created a human combat division, with Will appointed as liaison to the Krell forces. Many Krell officers were outraged by being ranked alongside a primitive, but Dorn's influence silenced the most vocal opponents. Thus began the first phase of galactic resistance, with humanity taking an unexpectedly central role. As the war intensified, Will's methods proved brutally effective. Human ships, retrofitted mining vessels, and cargo haulers armed with improvised weapons achieved victory rates that astounded the Galactic Council. Will became a reluctant figurehead, uncomfortable with recognition but unwilling to back down from the fight. The Coordinator analysis revealed something unexpected. The demons struggled to predict or corrupt human consciousness patterns. While they easily infiltrated and possessed most alien species, humans resisted mental intrusion. The Coordinator hypothesized it was because human brains evolved through constant conflict, making them naturally chaotic and resistant to external patterning. 5 years into the war, a critical turning point arrived. The demons launched a massive assault on a core world. Conventional forces were overwhelmed. Will, now commanding a fleet of human combat vessels, executed a maneuver no alien would consider. He crashed his command ship directly into the demon's central gateway structure, detonating its reactor core. The tactic worked, but Will was critically injured. As he recovered in a military medical facility, he met Winona Reeves, a brilliant but abrasive human weapons developer who'd been studying captured demon technology. Their relationship was initially antagonistic, but developed romantic tension through their shared commitment to the war effort. Winona revealed she developed prototype weapons specifically designed to disrupt demon materialization. 1 year later, Will and Winona were married, and she was pregnant with their daughter. The war had stabilized but showed no signs of ending. The Coordinator projected a multi-generational conflict. Will stood at the viewport of his quarters, looking at the ultrasound images of his unborn child. The galaxy beyond the glass was at war, burning in a conflict humans hadn't started, but now spearheaded.
"She'll never know a world without war,"
Winona said softly, joining him at the window. Will placed his hand on her belly, feeling the baby kick. "Then we'll make damn sure she knows how to win one." The demon's head exploded in a spray of black ichor, its partially materialized body collapsing into smoke. Morgan Cutter ejected the spent cartridge from her specialized rifle, already tracking her next target through the scope.
"That's 15,
she said calmly into her comm.
"Northeast quadrant clear."
"Copy that, Commander," Sarge's gruff voice responded. "West quadrant secured. These bastards are getting predictable. Morgan allowed herself a small smile. At 58, Sergeant William Sarge Harlow was the oldest active combat specialist in the human forces, having served with her father in the early days of the war. The fact that he considered the demons predictable after 25 years of fighting them was a testament to how far human combat doctrine had evolved. Unlike her father's generation, who'd fought with retrofitted mining tools and improvised weapons, Morgan's elite demon hunting squad used equipment specifically designed for interdimensional combat. Her rifle fired rounds containing a slip-space disruption field calibrated to the precise frequency of demon materialization, the technology that her mother developed.
Team, rendezvous at the extraction point,
Morgan ordered, slinging her rifle and drawing her sidearm.
Maintain alert status. These incursions rarely come as singles.
She moved with dry efficiency through the ruins of the Krell colony settlement, every sense attuned to potential threats. At 26, Morgan had never known a galaxy at peace. She'd grown up in military compounds, trained from childhood in combat techniques refined through decades of demon warfare. The extraction point was a cleared landing zone at the colony's center. Morgan arrived to find her team already assembled, 12 specialists in armor bearing the distinctive Thunderbolt insignia of the Human Combat Division. Sarge approached, his weathered face creased in a grin beneath his helmet visor. "This reminds me of the old days. Your father would have loved this. Probably would have brought a wrench, though." Morgan snorted.
And complained about having to save alien asses again.
She checked her tactical display.
Perimeter secure?
"As a virgin's chastity belt," Sarge confirmed. "Ready for the big man." On cue, a massive Krell dropship descended, its bone-white hull marked with ceremonial battle honors. The vessel touched down almost silently, rear hatch extending to reveal an honor guard of Krell warriors flanking a towering figure in ornate battle armor. High General Dorn strode down the ramp, his posture still imposing despite the visible signs of age. Gray had crept into his scale coloration, and the scar tissue around his broken tusk had calcified into a distinctive whorl. He spotted Morgan and approached directly, ignoring standard protocols.
Commander Cutter,
He rumbled, clasping forearms with her in the human military greeting he'd adopted decades ago.
still hunting demons while bureaucrats debate terminology?
Morgan's lips quirked into a half smile.
Still terrorizing your subordinates while pretending to be civilized?
Dorn's low, rumbling laugh surprised his honor guard. The legendary Krell general was known for his ferocity in battle, not his humor. Yet his easy rapport with the human commander was well known, a relationship forged through 25 years of shared combat, beginning when Dorn had fought alongside her father.
The situation is worse than reported,
Dorn said, his tone sobering.
The settlement's communication blackout wasn't technical failure. The demons have developed a new infiltration method.
He led Morgan toward a secure field command post, dismissing his honor guard with a gesture. Inside, tactical displays showed the colony grid, sectors marked with Krell military designations.
3 days ago, we lost contact,
Dorn explained.
Standard protocol dictated a communication team investigation. They found nothing unusual, but reported civilian behavior seemed off. Within hours, the team stopped responding. When we sent warriors, we found this.
He activated a holographic recording. Morgan watched as Krell civilians moved through their daily routines with subtle wrongness, micro-hesitations, unnatural synchronization between individuals. Then, a Krell warrior approached one for questioning. The civilian's form suddenly distorted, elongating into a demon manifestation that tore through the warrior's armor like paper.
Possession,
Morgan said flatly.
They've learned to fully integrate with host bodies, not just puppeteer them.
Dorn nodded grimly.
The traditional Krell response would be quarantine, containment rather than rescue.
He eyed Morgan carefully.
However, I believe a more human approach may be warranted.
You want us to go in and separate possessed from non-possessed,
Morgan surmised.
using my mother's detection technology.
Can it be done?
Morgan considered. The neural disruptors her mother had developed could theoretically detect the unique brainwave patterns of possessed individuals, but they'd never been tested on non-human physiology.
Sarge,
She called.
break out the NDT units. We need to recalibrate for Krell neural patterns.
Already on it, Commander. I figured the old lizard would ask.
Dorn huffed at the familiar insult, but didn't object. Years of working with humans had taught him their oddly offensive form of camaraderie.
I need a Krell volunteer for calibration,
Morgan said.
someone who definitely isn't possessed.
You have me.
Dorn said simply. Morgan raised an eyebrow.
Putting yourself at risk, General? The Krell High Command would have fits.
The High Command,
Dorn replied with a dismissive flick of his claws.
is not here.
The community center had been converted to an emergency shelter, housing nearly 300 Krell civilians behind hastily erected barricades. Morgan's team moved through the crowd methodically, neural detection devices scanning each individual.
Remember,
Morgan briefed her team.
these aren't the demons we're used to fighting. They're fully integrated with their hosts. If we can identify and isolate them, we might be able to develop an extraction protocol rather than termination.
The Krell military officers assigned to assist were visibly uncomfortable. When the first sensor indicated a possible possession, a young Krell officer immediately moved to detain the civilian with full restraint protocols.
Wait!
Morgan countermanded sharply. The civilian, an elderly Krell with pale scales, showed no obvious signs of possession. But something in their movements caught Morgan's attention. A subtle disconnect between eye movement and head turning.
Everyone back! Secure perimeter, 20-foot radius.
The Krell officer bristled.
Commander, regulations state...
Regulations won't mean shit if that thing manifests.
Morgan cut him off.
Secure the perimeter now!
Morgan approached the elderly Krell alone, hand resting casually near her sidearm.
Hello,
She said pleasantly.
mind if I ask you a few questions?
The elderly Krell blinked, head tilting at an angle just slightly wrong for Krell physiology.
Of course, human. I am fully cooperating with military directives.
Excellent.
Morgan smiled.
First question, how many eggs are in a typical Krell clutch?
The Krell blinked again.
4. Sometimes 5 in optimal conditions.
Morgan nodded, taking another step closer.
And which colony world suffered the treasure plague in 2197?
A micro-hesitation.
Belleron 4.
Interesting.
Morgan said, subtly shifting her weight to a combat stance.
Especially since there was no treasure plague. But you wouldn't know that, would you?
The elderly Krell's face contorted in rage, scales rippling as the demon began to manifest. Morgan drew and fired in one fluid motion, the disruptor round catching the entity mid-transformation. It shrieked, a sound that no Krell could produce, black tendrils erupting from the host body.
Contact! Live fire authorized!
Morgan shouted, rolling away from the thrashing creature. Her team responded instantly, surrounding the demon and pumping disruptor rounds into its manifestation points. More civilians began transforming, the demons apparently triggered by the first one's exposure. The community center erupted into chaos, civilians screaming, demons manifesting, weapons fire cutting through the air.
Evacuation protocol!
Morgan demanded.
Get the confirmed clean civilians out through the south exit! Sarge, I need containment fields on sectors 3 and 4!
Morgan's team flowed with the chaos. They herded unaffected civilians to safety while systematically isolating and neutralizing the possessed, using tactics that evolved minute by minute as they assessed demon responses. When it was over, 27 demons had been neutralized, with 16 Krell civilians saved from possession through a rapid field extraction technique Morgan improvised on the spot. The cost was high. 3 human specialists dead, dozens of Krell casualties, but far lower than a standard quarantine protocol would have yielded. In the aftermath, Dorn and Morgan conducted a debriefing. The Krell general watched her with an unreadable expression as she detailed the engagement statistics.
"Your mother would be proud," he said finally. "The extraction technique alone will save thousands."
Their conversation was interrupted by an emergency transmission. Morgan's blood ran cold as she processed the message. Demons had launched a direct assault on Earth. Somehow, they had bypassed early warning systems and established multiple gateways in Earth's major cities. Dorn saw her expression shift.
"Go," he said simply. "Take whatever resources you need."
Earth's defenses were substantial. After 25 years of war, humanity had militarized extensively. However, the demon assault was unprecedented in scale. Major cities were under siege, civilian populations evacuated to hardened bunkers. Morgan arrived at Pacific Command, the fortified military complex built into Mount Rainier. Her father, Will, now 71 but still formidable, coordinated global defense from the Central Command Center. He looked up as she entered, his weathered face breaking into a brief smile.
"About time you showed up," he growled. "Been having all the fun without you."
Morgan embraced him quickly, noting how thin he felt beneath his uniform. The years had worn him down, but his eyes remained sharp, his mind still the most effective weapon against the demons.
Situation report?
She asked, immediately business. Will gestured to the global tactical display.
17 major gateway incursions, concentrated around defensive infrastructure. It's coordinated, targeted. They figured out we're the biggest threat.
Morgan's mother entered, looking exhausted but determined. Dr. Winona Reeves Cutter had aged gracefully, her dark hair now streaked with silver, face lined with the stress of decades developing weapons against an enemy that constantly evolved.
The new disruption field generators are online in London, Cairo, and Sydney,
she reported.
Tokyo and Berlin will be operational within the hour. The demons are avoiding direct confrontation with the fields, which confirms my theory about their materialization dependency.
The Cutter family implemented a 3-pronged defense strategy. Will coordinated global military response, Morgan led elite strike teams against demon strongholds, and her mother deployed experimental weapon systems. The Coordinator AI allocated significant alien reinforcements to Earth, acknowledging humanity's critical importance to the war effort. During a critical operation to reclaim a fallen research facility outside Jakarta, Morgan's team was joined by Krell Special Forces led by Dorn's son, Rock. The young Krell officer initially clashed with Morgan, exhibiting the traditional Krell arrogance his father had mostly abandoned.
"Your approach lacks discipline,"
Rock criticized as they observed the facility from a hidden vantage point.
"A proper Krell assault would establish containment perimeters before advancing."
And give the demons time to fortify,
Morgan countered.
We hit hard, hit fast, and keep moving. Demons struggle with rapid adaptation.
"Unstructured violence is not strategy,"
Rock insisted. Morgan smiled thinly.
Then stay here and watch how effective unstructured violence can be when applied correctly.
The assault proceeded according to Morgan's plan. Fast, chaotic, overwhelming force directed at key points rather than a methodical advance. The demons were caught off guard by assault teams that changed tactics minute by minute, never establishing patterns that could be predicted. By the operation's end, The facility was secured with minimal casualties. The research recovered was priceless. Dr. Reeves' cutter had been developing a radical new weapon, a device that generated a field mimicking human brainwave patterns, which disrupted demon materialization on a massive scale. Rock approached Morgan as her team prepared to extract.
Your methods,
He began stiffly, then hesitated.
they are unorthodox, but I cannot argue with results.
High praise from a Krell.
Morgan replied dryly.
My father speaks of your family with great respect,
Rock continued.
I begin to understand why.
The Earth campaign culminated in Operation Thunderhead, a coordinated assault on the primary demon gateway established in the ruins of New York City. Morgan led the ground forces, supported by Rock's Krell warriors and contingents from 6 other alien species. The battle was brutal, demons manifesting in overwhelming numbers. The gateway itself pulsed with otherworldly energies, a tear in reality that grew larger by the hour. If it reached critical mass, Earth would become a permanent breach point, allowing unlimited demon forces into the galaxy. Will, refusing to coordinate from safety, joined the front lines. Though his combat days were long past, he insisted on participating in humanity's most critical defense.
Can't let my daughter have all the glory,
He told his wife before departing.
Besides, I want to swing this one last time.
He patted the wrench hanging from his belt, the same one he'd used against demons 25 years earlier, now a legendary artifact among human forces. The assault pushed forward to the gateway control structure, where demon resistance was fiercest. Morgan's team, supported by Rock's warriors, spearheaded the advance. In the chaos of combat, Will Cutter found himself separated from the main force, cut off by a swarm of demons. Morgan saw her father's predicament too late. He stood alone in a cleared space, wrench in one hand, disruptor pistol in the other, surrounded by materializing demons.
Cover me!
She screamed, already sprinting toward him. Will saw her coming and shook his head. With deliberate aim, he activated his emergency transponder, the signal to detonate the charges his team had placed around the control structure's foundation. Then, he charged into the demon swarm, buying precious seconds for the demolition team to get clear. The explosion collapsed the control structure, destabilizing the gateway. Energy backlash consumed the demons around it in a wave of disruption. When the dust settled, Morgan found her father amidst the rubble, critically wounded but alive. She knelt beside him, applying emergency medical procedures with shaking hands.
That was a stupid stunt, old man,
she said, voice breaking. Will coughed, blood speckling his lips.
Got worse, didn't it?
His eyes, though clouded with pain, held the same determination they always had.
Promise me something, kid.
Don't start with deathbed requests,
Morgan growled.
You're not dying today.
Promise me you'll finish it.
Will insisted.
We just held the line. You're the ones who'll win it.
I promise.
She whispered.
Now shut up and let me work.
But it was too late. Will Cutter died as he had lived, on his own terms, in combat, protecting others. His last words, whispered so only Morgan could hear.
Cutters finish what they start.
In the aftermath, Morgan became the face of humanity's war effort. The coordinator, analyzing the Battle of Earth, concluded that human-led combat groups consistently outperformed all other species against the demons. Against tradition over protests from several ancient races, the AI created a controversial new policy. The human combat doctrine became standard training for all galactic forces. 5 years after Earth's defense, Morgan had risen to unprecedented authority for a human. Supreme commander of anti-demon operations. She worked directly with the Coordinator, implementing strategic deployments throughout the galaxy. Her relationship with Rock had evolved from mutual respect to friendship and, eventually, to romance, symbolizing the deepening alliance between humans and Krell. Their marriage, the first high-profile human-Krell union, was met with mixed reactions. Traditionalists on both sides considered it an abomination, but the younger generations, raised in the crucible of the Demon War, saw it as a natural evolution of the alliance that had kept civilization alive. Their child, Henry Hank Cutter Dorn, represented the ultimate symbol of cooperation between the species. The Coordinator, observing genetic compatibility assessments, noted the child exhibited the best traits of both lineages: human adaptability with Krell physical resilience. Unknown to the parents, the AI quietly designated the child as significant to future war planning, a potential key to the conflict's resolution. "Contact left!" Hank Cutter Dorn shouted, his voice carrying easily through the comm despite the chaos of combat. "Talia, suppress! Jeb, flank right! Gort, with me!" His mixed species task force responded with quiet professionalism. Talia, a human combat specialist, laid down covering fire with her disruptor cannon. Jeb, another human, sprinted right, leaping with enhanced agility provided by his combat exoskeleton. Gort, a young Krell warrior, moved in sync with Hank, the two using complementary tactics developed through years of fighting together. At 24, Hank commanded the most elite demon hunting unit in the galaxy. His appearance was predominantly human, but with subtle Krell characteristics: scales interspersed with skin along his spine and shoulders, unusual amber eyes with vertical pupils, and physical strength that exceeded human norms. He'd inherited his grandfather's assertive leadership and his mother's tactical brilliance, combined with uniquely hybrid thinking that made him unpredictable to both humans and Krell, and especially to demons. The abandoned research outpost should have been empty. Instead, they'd found a substantial demon presence, and something worse. "Primary target acquired," Hank reported, observing a massive tear in reality at the facility's center. Unlike standard demon gateways, this breach pulsed with unusual energy patterns. "Coordinator, are you seeing this?" The AI's voice responded in his comm.
Affirmative, Commander. Energy signatures indicate experimental slip space manipulation. Historical records show this facility was researching dimensional boundaries. Analysis suggests demons have repurposed the equipment.
"For what purpose?" Hank asked, signaling his team to secure the perimeter.
Unknown,
the Coordinator replied.
Data insufficient. Recommend securing all research materials for analysis.
The team methodically cleared the facility, eliminating demon resistance. Unlike both his progenitors, Hank employed a hybrid approach: structured chaos with elements of both human and Krell military traditions, enhanced by technology specifically designed for his unique command style. In the main laboratory, they discovered data caches that had survived the decades of abandonment. Gort, who specialized in information retrieval, quickly established a secure uplink to extract the files.
"Sir,"
the young Krell called.
"you should see this."
Hank joined him at the console, scanning the ancient research logs. His eyes widened as he grasped the implications. "Talia, expedite extraction. We need to get this to command immediately." The Coordinator's holographic avatar hovered above the circular war table, its humanoid form flickering occasionally as it processed immense data streams. Around the table stood representatives of the galaxy's major species, including Morgan Cutter, her once dark hair streaked with gray, face bearing scars from countless battles, and her Krell husband, Rock, showing minimal signs of aging due to his species' longer lifespan. Hank's team had returned to headquarters with their discovery, presenting findings that could potentially change the course of the war. The data indicated the abandoned facility had been conducting classified experiments on slip space, the dimensional realm from which demons originated.
More crucially, the scientists had been working on a method to target the demon's home dimension directly.
"The implications are significant," the coordinator stated, its voice filling the chamber. "This research builds upon Dr. Reeves Cutter's human brainwave disruption field, but vastly scaled up and weaponized in ways previously deemed too dangerous." Morgan leaned forward, studying the technical specifications.
My mother specifically avoided this approach because of the dimensional feedback risks.
"Conventional warfare cannot achieve victory," the coordinator continued dispassionately. "I have calculated that the demon's ability to materialize from slip space gives them effectively infinite reinforcement capacity. Even with optimal deployment of current forces, we can at best maintain the current stalemate indefinitely." The council erupted into predictable factions. Ancient, cautious species like the Talar, living gas clouds inhabiting mechanical bodies, advocated continued containment rather than risking unknown consequences of attacking slip space. The Krell leadership supported aggressive action but couldn't agree on methodology. Hank observed the familiar pattern of debate with growing frustration. For 50 years, the galaxy had fought this way, cautiously, by committee, against an enemy that thrived on order and predictability. He approached the coordinator's hologram directly, interrupting the debate, something few organics dared to do. "We've been fighting this war wrong from the beginning," he stated flatly, silencing the council. "The demons adapt to patterns. Our entire power structure, the council, the chains of command, the approval process creates predictability that they exploit." The coordinator's holographic face regarded him impassively. "Elaborate, Commander." "Give humanity full authority to execute an offensive operation," Hank proposed. "No council approval, no committee oversight, no traditional command structure. Let us fight this war the way humans fought wars for thousands of years, chaotically, unpredictably, with the freedom to adapt instantly." The chamber fell silent. Such a proposal was unprecedented, effectively suggesting temporary suspension of the galactic governance system that had maintained balance for eons. To everyone's shock, the coordinator responded. "Your proposal has merit." The AI's hologram expanded, displaying war statistics across 50 years of conflict. "I have analyzed the pattern extensively. Conventional galactic power structures cannot adapt with sufficient speed to counter demon evolution. Human-led operations consistently demonstrate superior outcomes." The hologram shifted, displaying ancient code sequences that few recognized. "I am activating Emergency Protocol Omega. This grants Commander Cutter Dawn provisional authority to requisition any resources deemed necessary for his operation, with minimal oversight restrictions." Protests erupted immediately, particularly from the Talar representatives. The coordinator silenced them with an unprecedented increase in volume. "The decision is made. All further debate is irrelevant to the operational timeline." Hank's plan was audacious to the point of madness. Using the experimental research, he proposed constructing massive brainwave amplification devices on thousands of civilian vessels, creating a volunteer armada to penetrate deep into demon-controlled space. Each ship would generate disruptive fields modeled on human consciousness patterns, culminating in a synchronized attack on what was believed to be the primary slip space breach point. The Talar and other cautious species were horrified, warning that tampering with dimensional boundaries could destroy reality itself. The Krell were divided. Traditionalists opposed placing warriors on what amounted to a suicide mission, while progressives, including Rock, supported Hank's bold approach. Human colonies volunteered ships and crews en masse, seeing the chance to end the generational war. Within weeks, a vast armada assembled, unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Mining ships, cargo haulers, personal yachts, all retrofitted with weapons and the experimental brainwave generators. As the armada prepared for deployment, Hank stood in his quarters, studying tactical projections. His mother entered without knocking, a privilege only she maintained.
Your grandfather would be proud,
Morgan said, surveying the organized chaos of planning materials.
He always said conventional military thinking couldn't win this war.
I wish I'd known him, Hank replied. All I have are stories. Morgan approached, holding a cloth-wrapped object.
And this.
She unwrapped Will Cutter's old wrench, the same one he'd used to save the Krell warship more than half a century earlier. It had become a family heirloom, passed from Will to Morgan, and now to Hank.
He called it his lucky charm. Said any problem in the universe could be fixed with enough leverage.
Hank took the wrench, feeling its solid weight. The metal was scarred and worn, but the tool remained functional, practical, reliable, just like the man who'd wielded it. He attached it to his combat harness. For luck, he said with a half-smile. The night before Operation Launch, the Cutter-Dorn family gathered privately. Morgan, Rock, and Hank, 2 generations of demon fighters united by blood and purpose. No grand speeches were made, no emotional declarations. They were warriors preparing for battle, following family tradition.
Cutters finish what they start,
Morgan said simply, embracing her son. Rock placed a clawed hand on Hank's shoulder, a gesture of respect between Krell warriors.
Fight with honor, but win by any means necessary.
I learned from the best, Hank replied. Both of you. Operational Dimensional Hammer began with the largest coordinated FTL jump in galactic history. Hundreds of thousands of ships materialized in demon-controlled space, immediately facing overwhelming opposition. The civilian vessels, transformed into warrior craft, bristling with weapons, formed formations that shifted unpredictably, confounding demon attack patterns. Each ship generated disruptive brainwave fields calibrated to human neural patterns. The effect on demon ships was immediate and visceral. They convulsed in space, their forms destabilizing simply from proximity to the projected consciousness. At the operations center, Hank commanded the flagship alongside his parents. 2 generations of demon fighters united for the final push. As they approached the massive slip-space breach, a swirling vortex of impossible colors and shifting geometries, demon resistance intensified. Ships were lost by the hundreds, but the Armada pushed forward with grim determination.
Generator banks 1 through 4 at maximum output,
reported Talia from her station.
Demon materialization rates dropping by 60% in affected sectors.
Press the advantage, Hank ordered. All ships, maintain field integrity. Penetration teams, prepare for Phase 2. A violent explosion rocked the flagship. Warning klaxons blared as systems reported extensive damage.
Primary brainwave generator destabilizing,
Gort reported.
Field integrity failing. Demons adapting to the frequency.
Hank studied the tactical display, mind racing through options. We need to get closer to the breach point. The plan only works if we can establish a complete field perimeter around it before activating the dimensional inversion.
The generator won't last that long,
Morgan warned, reviewing the damage reports. Then we fix it, Hank said simply, unclipping his grandfather's wrench from his harness. Mom, take command. Dad, coordinate the defense perimeter. I'm going to engineering. The generator chamber was chaos. Technical crews working desperately to stabilize systems never designed to channel such energies. Chief Engineer Lara Santis looked up as Hank entered, her face streaked with coolant fluid.
Commander, we're losing containment. The regulator fluids can't handle the dimensional feedback.
Hank assessed the situation pragmatically. We're over-engineering this, he decided. The system doesn't need to be perfect, just stable enough to get us to the breach point. Using his grandfather's wrench alongside cutting-edge tools, Hank implemented a hybrid solution, bypassing damaged regulators, creating manual control pathways, and essentially
hot-wiring the most sophisticated piece of technology in the galaxy with the mechanical equivalent of duct tape and wire. "That shouldn't work," Santis said, watching in fascination as the generator stabilized.
"Tell that to the generator," Hank replied with a grin.
With the flagship systems restored, they reached the primary breach point. The Armada arranged itself in a predetermined pattern, brainwave generators powering up to maximum. Demons swarmed in unprecedented numbers, sensing the existential threat. Defensive ships, including vessels from every galactic species, formed a protective perimeter around the core fleet. The brainwave generator activation sequence began, a synchronized cascade designed to create a feedback loop in slipspace itself. As energy built, demons began disintegrating simply from proximity to the combined human mental pattern being projected. The breach visibly contracted, then expanded violently, threatening to consume the fleet. Warning signals blared throughout the flagship. Hank studied the readings with growing concern.
"The synchronization is failing,"
he reported.
"The breach is becoming unstable in the wrong way. We're going to lose the entire fleet if this continues." "Can we abort?" Rock asked.
Morgan shook her head.
"We're past the point of no return. The energies are already in motion."
Hank reviewed the technical data, reaching a grim conclusion.
"Someone needs to manually adjust the flagship's generator. Reset the primary oscillation frequency to match the breach's resonance pattern."
"That's suicide,"
Morgan said flatly.
"The generator chamber is flooded with raw slipspace energy. No human could survive that environment."
"I'm not entirely human," Hank reminded her, his eyes shifting to their reptilian configuration as stress activated his Krell genetics.
"No!"
both parents said simultaneously.
"We don't have a choice," Hank argued. "The entire operation fails if we don't stabilize the breach now. Billions more die if we retreat."
He locked eyes with his mother and smiled.
"Grandpa Will crashed his ship into a demon gateway to save a core world. You led the defense of Earth knowing you might not survive. This is part of the family lunacy."
Before they could protest further, he sealed the command deck doors and headed for the generator chamber. The corridor leading to it was already warping, reality itself becoming unstable as slipspace energies leaked through. Hank forced his way forward, relying on his physiology to withstand conditions that would immediately kill a pure human or Krell. With each step, he felt his cells changing, adapting in ways neither of his parent species could. The generator chamber was a maelstrom of impossible energies, colors that shouldn't exist, geometries that defied comprehension. The control console remained intact, but was surrounded by what appeared to be localized breaches in reality itself. Hank pushed forward, his consciousness fragmenting and reforming as slipspace energies invaded his mind. Through sheer will, he reached the console, using his grandfather's wrench to manipulate controls too dangerous to touch directly. Through the chamber's viewports, he could see the primary breach beginning a cascade collapse, reality rippling as dimensional boundaries reasserted themselves. Ship systems failed around him as he completed the final calibration, locking the generator controls in position with Will's wrench. His last conscious thought was simple pride. Pride in his family, in humanity, in finishing what his grandfather had started 50 years earlier. From the command deck, Morgan and Rock watched as dimensional energy patterns rippled outward from the collapsing breach. Demon forces throughout the sector disintegrated as their connection to slipspace was severed. Emergency reports flooded in from across the galaxy. All demon breaches were collapsing simultaneously, the dimensional barrier resealing itself. Against all expectations, the flagship survived, though heavily damaged. Once conditions stabilized, Morgan led the first rescue team to the generator chamber, expecting to find only her son's remains. Instead, they discovered Hank, unconscious but alive, his body surrounded by a shimmering field of contained slipspace energy. Medical analysis indicated he existed partially in normal space and partially in a pocket of sealed slip space within his own cells, a state that should have been impossible, yet somehow sustained by his unique hybrid physiology. 10 years passed. The war was over. The galaxy rebuilt under the Coordinator's guidance, with human influence grown enormously due to their crucial role in victory. Krell and humans formed deep cultural bonds, with mixed communities becoming common throughout the galaxy. In a specialized medical facility on Earth, Morgan and Rock visited their son. Hank remained in suspended animation, neither aging nor deteriorating. The Coordinator's analysis suggested he might eventually recover as the slip space pocket within him stabilized, but whether that would take years or centuries remained unknown.
"The doctors say his brain activity increased again this week,"
Morgan said, studying the medical readouts.
"He's still fighting his way back."
He is strong,
Rock replied.
like his mother.
They stood together at their son's bedside, representative of how far their species had come, from Will Cutter's reluctant rescue of a Krell warship to a family that embodied the best of both worlds. In its central processing hub, the Coordinator analyzed data from the 50-year war. The AI reviewed the Cutter family history, Will's improvised rescue that changed the course of galactic defense, Morgan's tactical innovations that preserved Earth and advanced human standing, Hank's sacrifice that secured final victory. After millennia of existence, the Coordinator had learned something new from humanity's chaotic approach. The AI created a new protocol within its core systems, designated the Cutter Protocol. When facing threats beyond conventional response, trust human chaos over ordered caution. In the medical facility, as Morgan and Rock departed, Hank's finger twitched slightly, still gripping his grandfather's wrench. 3 generations, connected by blood, purpose, and an old tool that had helped save the galaxy.